I am Dantes, better known as the Dawn of Beer. Welcome to a bonus episode of the All About Beer podcast. On the All About Beer podcast, we take a deep dive into one topic in beer. In this bonus episode, we're going to talk about how advanced hop products can make beer more economic. But first, please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at allaboutbeer. And please visit allaboutbeer.com/support to support this show and others. So, in the last bonus episode, we talked about how advanced hop products can reduce hop load and ingredients cost. And we looked at Contessa, which is a domestic alternative to European noble hops. In this bonus episode, we're going to talk with Hopsteiner and Peaceful Side Brewery about how they were able to use new hop products to save money on every batch of beer. But first, if you'd like to help support the All About Beer podcast, please reach out to podcast@allaboutbeer.com. And before we get into this bonus episode, here is a word from Hopsteiner.
Today's episode is brought to you by Salvo, a 100% hop-derived variety-specific aroma extract from Hopsteiner. Get all the benefits of variety-specific concentrated hop flavor without the unnecessary bitterness or vegetal matter. Salvo provides clean, concentrated aroma, scalable dosing, and yield savings efficiency. If your kettle and centrifuge could talk, they'd ask for Salvo by name.
Chris Meadows is the head of brewery operations at Peaceful Side Brewery in Maryville, Tennessee, where he leads production, product development, and strategic partnerships. With nearly 2 decades in the craft beer industry, Chris began his career at Sweetwater Brewing Company, rising from volunteer to lead brewer and helping scale operations while launching their wood-aged program. He later played a key role in opening Elkmont Exchange in Knoxville and continued on as brewmaster and consultant through its transition to a Yeehaw Brewing property. Chris holds advanced training in brewing science and engineering from the American Brewers Guild and has worked alongside respected programs like Blackberry Farm Brewery, shaping his focus on balance, fermentation character, and sense of place. Since joining Peaceful Side in 2024, he has led the growth of the brewery's production capabilities and built a dynamic, regionally inspired beer program. Known for his collaborative approach, Chris regularly works with other breweries and local partners to create thoughtful, expressive beers that connect community, creativity, and craft. Paul Schroeder has spent more than a decade working in the brewing industry, helping breweries of all sizes, from startup craft breweries to large producers, navigate ingredient selection, brewing innovation, and supply chain strategy. Before specializing in hops, he worked for a large independent supplier, gaining firsthand experience with the raw ingredients that form the foundation of great beer. Today, Paul works closely with brewers to connect hop science, agricultural innovation, and practical brewing applications, helping them create distinctive beers while staying ahead of industry trends. His passion lies in exploring the intersection of hops, brewing, and the evolving tastes of today's beer drinkers. Outside of work, Paul enjoys spending time with his wife, 2 daughters, and their 2 dogs. An avid outdoorsman, he loves camping, vegetable gardening, mountain biking, and snowboarding. He also enjoys tending to his flock of more than 50 chickens and ducks, combining his passion for agriculture, self-sufficiency, and life outdoors. Whether he's helping brewers create exceptional beer, exploring a mountain trail, or working around the homestead, Paul is driven by a deep appreciation for the connection between agriculture, innovation, and the natural world. Welcome to the show, Chris and Paul.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks for having us. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
this is going to be fun. So first, Chris, for those who are unfamiliar, please tell us about Peaceful Side, when you were founded and your distribution footprint and a sense of size, like how many barrels maybe you brewed last year.
Sure.
Want to
Yeah.
share that?
So Peaceful Side Brewery basically was established about 2 years ago. We
Oh,
purchased the facility that was formerly known as Blackberry Farm Brewery when they sold it a couple years ago. We are currently in production of about 2,000 barrels a year. We're in most of Tennessee. We are also sending beer statewide to Alabama, and then we still make a few batches of classic Saison a year that go to Colorado, Tennessee, and Alabama as well.
okay. And where is Peaceful Side located?
We are located in Maryville, Tennessee.
Okay. And pardon my ignorance, but where is Maryville? Other
We're
than
about
Tennessee,
we're
obviously.
about 20 minutes south of Knoxville,
Okay, perfect.
right outside the Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
Okay. And then tell us a little bit about your own personal history, Chris. Like, how did you get into beer and brewing? And, you mentioned you took over the Blackberry Farms space, but, obviously you've made some changes there in terms of what types of beers you make?
Yeah, so I started brewing beer around 2007, 2008, and I kind of happened into a job at Sweetwater before they had gotten really monstrously big. I started as a volunteer, then I got hired on to work on the packaging line. Then I got promoted to the cellar, running filters and centrifuges, carbonating beer. Then when they transitioned from their 50 barrel brew house to their 400 barrel brew house, I trained to be a brewer, became their lead brewer, helped develop the Woodlands wood program. Uh, that's kind of a long story short for Sweetwater. And then I moved here in Knoxville in 2017. I helped open Elkmont Exchange, which closed after the pandemic. That property became a Yeehaw Brewing property, and I worked there for 3 years. And that leads us to, just a couple years ago where I was brought on here to lead the program at Peaceful Side.
Okay, cool. And what types of beers are you making at Peaceful Side now?
So we make a pretty wide variety. Blackberry Farm was more of a traditional style approach. We recognized that that's all really great, but our community really wanted a lot more flavors. So we make everything from, Mexican lagers and light lagers to IPAs, hazy IPAs. We have a pretty fruitful seltzer program, and we still do bottle conditioned projects with Brettanomyces and oak aged foeder type stuff where we can. It just those things don't really turn the needle for our community as much anymore. So we try to have a reflective portfolio that people really show up to drink.
Cool. Okay, so obviously we're here to talk about hops and hop products and working with Hopsteiner and the great job they do. So specifically in this episode, we wanted to talk about the cost, and I guess you know I think a lot of people hops are expensive, um, and I think a lot of brewers just kind of accept it for what it is. Maybe you can lock in prices through contracting, but I guess at Peaceful Side, you were wanting to see if you could replace some of your hop products to save money. Can you tell us the story about that?
Sure, yeah. Paul and I met a couple years ago when I was running the Yeehaw facility here in Knoxville, and we had this project called Mic Check IPA, and the goal was every time we brewed it, just to try and substitute a little more pellets with some kind of advanced hop product. The goal was to just kind of research that point of contact where people can notice, hey, this doesn't taste like a normal IPA, find that threshold, but also increase the yield and shelf stability of our projects. So when I came on board here, we were still making the Blackberry Farm, green can IPA, and it was a great IPA recipe, but it cost so much money per turn. We weren't really able to sell it at the rate we wanted to make money back on that project. So I called Paul and said, "Hey, we really want to kind of reformulate this IPA to not just make it better, but make it more efficient for our system. We want to increase the yield, increase the shelf stability." And so we got to working on that at the same time as we got to work on our hazy IPA because we were making it just for taproom only. And when we got the call that they wanted it in distribution, looking at the COGS, it was just not something sustainable that we could put in distribution at the time. So we worked really hard to reformulate both so that they're more shelf stable, have a higher yield, but also have two distinct profiles. The IPA, our American IPA, is more of a citrus focused IPA with some balanced bitterness. And then our hazy is way out there in terms of tropical and luscious body. And Paul helped a lot with the Hopsteiner products, making that happen.
Um, Paul, do you want to chime in and kind of give your side of you get the phone call and then what's your first, how do you solve this problem?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think you've got to obviously talk to the brewer and figure out what their goals are and, trying to find products that are going to fit in that bill. And I think the goal with this project was to ultimately not change the flavor profile, but enhance it. And like Chris said, extend that shelf stability and hop flavor to keep that beer tasting fresher longer in the market. And I think half the fun is pinging ideas off of Chris and Chris doing his calculations and things like that, and then coming back to me and saying this might work. And it's truly a work in progress as you develop the replacements for the pellet hops going into the beer. And going back and forth, I know multiple emails and spreadsheets with Chris and comparing oils and all that fun stuff. Ultimately got Chris to land on some replacement values, and then the fun thing after that is really just brewing the trial batch to see if our concept can come to life. And I think it did at the end of it.
Cool. So Chris, then can you talk about, the changes that you did make, a bit about the trialing process, because presumably you're concerned about, not affecting the beer. And how did that all turn out? And then if you're willing to share numbers, w- you know, is this now economic?
Sure. Yeah, I can comment on those things. So, in terms of doing a trial, we really just went all for it. We have a 20 barrel brew house with 40 barrel tanks. So on both brands, our American IPA and our hazy, we just brewed a full 20 barrel batch of the trial recipe in congruence with our old recipes so that if we needed to, we could blend them away, over
Ah,
the course of a few weeks. The goal was to not let people really know that it's changed because it wasn't really an advertising or selling point for us. We know that our audience is, an everyday person. They're not really high on the beer nerdery kind of stuff. So the more we put into that, the less we get back. So we didn't really want to advertise we were changing things. We just kind of wanted to do it subtly in a way that people kind of thought to themselves, wow, this is a really good beer. And so we kind of transitioned into that over time by doing some blending and test batches that way. But it was pretty immediate. We had some sensory internal sensory panels and just had some blind tastings, and it was pretty obvious really quickly. People always preferred the newer, updated version every time. And so
oh,
that was a really
really?
good sign that led us in the right direction. In terms of the cost, our old American IPA was around $108 a barrel, and the new IPA is only at $90 a barrel with an improved yield as well. So not only is it saving us money per turn, it's yielding more on brew day and it's yielding more in the bright tank. So it's a double win. And same with hazy. Hazy originally was about 140 a barrel, which was really high.
Ooh,
But it was just these hops, New Zealand hop blends, all these different hops from all over the world, trying to make a really punchy standout hop profile. And we reined that into about $120 a barrel with Paul's help. And again, it increases the yield too. We're routinely seeing about 1.5 to 2 barrels extra on packaging day, which is just phenomenal for us.
yeah, yeah. You mentioned you did sensory, presumably, and the new versions were favored. In what way? Like, did they taste brighter, fresher? What can you describe that benefit?
Sure. Yeah, they had the American IPA had more of a balanced bitterness, whereas the older version was a little more astringent. It had, I think, like 8 or 9 different hops in it, and now we've only got like 4 or 5 hops in it. So it's kind of a refined approach. It has more of a clear direction. It was originally all over the place in terms of flavor, and now it's just very citrus forward. It's that classic grapefruit, citrusy kind of texture and flavor that we're looking for. And it doesn't linger. That's one of the things I like about these advanced hop products is even with the bitterness side of it, it's not a lingering type of bitterness. It hits the palate with the bittering component, but it kind of washes away in the finish and doesn't leave your tongue sticky. And we've found that a lot of our customers really enjoy that because we have restaurants on our properties. So people want to be able to enjoy the beer but not feel like they taste it all day long or that it ruins the taste of their smash burger or whatever.
Right, right.
And the same thing with the hazy. It was kind of all over the place, tropical with a little grapefruit and citrusy, but they kind of tasted and smelled similar because, they all had some of the same hops, just in different proportions. And with the reformulation, they both have two distinct hop profiles and they don't share the same components. So there's not a hop in the IPA that's in the hazy. They're all different now.
Um, Paul, when Chris calls you up and, tells you what his goals are, and it sounds like, it wasn't just substituting different hop products, but you actually suggested, I think, or ended up using different hop varieties. How do you approach this when, like, you sort of have carte blanche, right? So how do you? I don't even know how you start.
Yeah, I mean, you start by looking at the current recipe that they're brewing, and then you have to obviously have a knowledge base of the hops that we're selling at Hopsteiner, and understand where there's some overlays in flavor, and then you start to look at the proportions and oils and how much we're delivering to the beer through the whirlpool or the dry hop or whatever, wherever it may be in the process. And you start tinkering conceptually. And I have a spreadsheet that kind of does this for us, where we can plug in a hop bill. And we're able to convert it into how much actual hop oil is being delivered to the beer. And then we can start to look at these advanced products and the hop oil that they're going to eventually contribute to the beer, and start to match those up. And, looking at varieties that have like flavors. So, not to mention any specific names, but if we're looking for one that has you know, citrus, grapefruit, and peach, we might find one that has two of those three. But maybe you can manipulate that hop in a way through process to drive out other flavors. So it's absolutely it's fun, but at the same time, I will tell you, I probably texted Chris a bunch of times through the trial process. Um, a little nervous, optimistically nervous might be the right word. Um, because we're obviously trying to flavor match these beers, and their consumer is at the top of mind. Uh, and so there's a little gut wrench going on there, but when Chris got back to me and said that it was an overwhelming success, it definitely takes a little bit of that pressure off.
So, Chris Paul is talking about, a little bit of a gut wrench, and it's your beer, Chris. So I gotta think you're feeling the same. The simple side of me thinks, well, I need to substitute hop A with hop product A. You weren't
Right.
doing that, which must add an extra level of nervousness. Or is Paul convincing? Like he says, okay, we do these flavor matchings, and this is gonna work, Chris. Trust me. And then you trust him, or how does this go?
It's more along the lines of I'm pretty daringly cavalier with a lot of things, and
Okay.
not to toot my own horn, but I've brewed a ton of beer in my career. When I was at Sweetwater, we experimented with a lot of different hop products. Were very hop focused. When I was there, we were brewing like 7,000 barrels a week. It was insane.
Oh,
And it kind of gave me this ability to say, well, conceptually, this could work. The data is all there. And, Hopsteiner does a good job of having that data available to brewers. And Paul does a great job of translating some of the more, difficult things to understand into quote unquote layman terms. So it's easier for people to understand. So when I brought the concept to my boss, who's the vice president of operations, he was kind of like, hey, so if you're confident this is going to work and it's going to yield more beer and be shelf stable, let's just green light a test and see where it goes. And so it really didn't seem that scary on my end. I think it might seem more scary on Paul's end just because he doesn't want to get that bad reputation if it doesn't work out. But it definitely did. And because I'd had experience with him a couple years ago at Yeehaw property, it was the same thing. I'd already had experience with him. It wasn't like a sales rep was trying to sell me on something I didn't know anything about. We already had some real data and real, you know, experience with it. And so I was pretty confident leading into that Paul was the right
okay.
guy to call.
And it sounded like you had a backup plan in terms of, maybe being able to blend it away. Do you have a tip for other brewers who, maybe want to start experimenting with something like this? Do they need to have a tank available, or, they need to be prepared to, blend away a batch over five other batches, or do you have any kind of thinking on that?
Sure. I think it's really up to the brewer and their experience and their confidence level. But with us, we're owned by a company that has five or six different tap room properties, different restaurant properties. So we were confident that if it didn't work out, that 20 barrel turn, of different IPA could just be packaged as a special one-off for our tap rooms, and
Okay.
we could consume that pretty easily in our own network of businesses. And so I think that it really just depends. If you've got a lot riding on it, you may want to change one thing at a time over the course of a few months every time you brew it. But with us, we just kind of went for it.
Okay. And we'll be right back with more after this word from our sponsor.
Let's talk brewhouse efficiency. Replacing pellet loads with Salvo can not only boost aroma density, but reduce trub load and increase beer wort. Seems like simple math, but if it's still not obvious, replacing pellets with Salvo can give you more beer per batch with better brewhouse efficiency. Salvo, designed for brewers who are tired of sacrificing yield for aroma.
Okay, so Chris, if you're willing to share specifics of the two IPAs, like what was your original um, hop recipe, I guess, if that's the right term, and
Sure.
then what changes you made, what products you're using instead, and maybe dumb question, but is it only the hops that changed? To support these changes in the hops, do you have to do any changes to your malt bill as well?
Sure. Let me try and pull these up real quick. Hang on.
Just like to add, Chris, I think you named our new collab coming up, Daringly Cavalier. I like it.
I love it. I love it.
I think I do have one thing to add about, kind of the gut wrenching and the weight on the trial. I also live in Knoxville, so it's a local beer on the scene for me too. And so while I have products in it, I'm not the one making it. I still take some local pride in it, knowing
Yeah.
that people are going to be enjoying this beer. So I knew if it passed Chris's standards, it was definitely going to be a hit.
And Paul, when you're sitting on this side of the bar and you're listening to other customers talk about the beer and any thoughts or feedback that you've heard.
I think it's good to just hear him say that it tastes brighter, fresher, crisper, um, more in tune with a modern IPA. It's nice to hear those things.
Yeah, cool. Chris, how you doing?
Pretty good. I've almost got the regular IPA. The malt bills of the IPAs didn't change at all.
Okay.
We'd already done a trial of that, several months ago to kind of lock in certain suppliers that we really liked. But the original IPA recipe that we inherited from Blackberry Farm had Altus, Cascade, Chinook, Columbus, Trident. Those were all in the hot side. And then let me get back to the
That's all complicated.
it was a lot. When I first saw it, I was
Okay.
like, my gosh, and wait till you see the dry hop. Hang on.
Okay.
Dry hop was Azaka, Citra, Eureka, Idaho 7, and Strata. So I mean, right away the hops are just so numerous, and it was kind of baffling that were that many hops in there. But it had been built so that if something was not in stock or available, they could change one thing out, and it kind of minimized the impact of it, which
Okay.
I did appreciate that understanding. But it was it was kind of a massive amount, and they weren't even amounts. So there was always leftover crumbs in a bag, or we're opening a brand new bag for like 3 pounds.
Right.
So it didn't really kind of make a lot of sense for the longevity of our hops.
And I remember seeing that, Chris, and my first two suggestions are we need to pare the hops down and then
Yeah,
we need to scale them to package size. So whatever the extract package sizing was, or, two 11-pound increments used in the recipe.
right. And I like process wise, I like to do that so I don't have a bunch of stuff sitting on the shelf, waiting for something to happen.
Mm.
Right.
All right, so now our IPA looks like this. It's got Chinook and Columbus up front. Those are some regular T90s. You've
Easy.
got Trident Lupulin pellets in the Whirlpool, Trident Salvo and Eureka Salvo in the Whirlpool. All right, so the dry hop on the new one, Eureka Lupulin, Trident Lupulin, some Sultana, Calypso, and then it's got to have a little Citra Cryo because it had a Citra originally. Um, but in terms of the poundage, the original IPA recipe we were making here had the dry hop was in the 60 pounds, and now we're in the 40s
Oh,
because of the advanced hop product. And so it's much more efficient on the yield that way. Now let me pull back and look at the Hazy Trail Magic, which is our hazy IPA. Originally it had a bunch of New Zealand stuff in it, which was great. It really made it awesome. But that's one of the magical things about working with Paul was how do we emulate this? Obviously, we cannot go to distribution with a beer that costs $140 a barrel to produce. We
Right.
would lose our ass on it. So I came to him with the profiles we had, and we decided to land on Bravo lupulin for a little bit of bittering, and that's mostly all that's in the hot side, except for some nugget salvo, and then we use a little bit of Salvo Plus in the tank when we pitch it. So in terms of the hot side, it drastically reduced the load of things we're going in, but we're still packing in the oils that we need. And then instead of all these New Zealand hops in the dry hop, we've moved into a much more streamlined spot with some, fairly unattractive named things. Like they don't sell themselves based on the name.
Right.
But in terms of the oil content, they really work for what we're going for. Bravo lupulin, bitter gold lupulin, some Idaho 7, Mosaic, and then Simcoe. And then we use that Mosaic because we had it in stock. And now we're out of that Mosaic, so we're moving into the Erebus territory, which Paul describes as like Mosaic, but without the, what did you call it? Without the grunginess.
Yeah, without the grungy, dirty gym sock dieseliness.
Yeah.
And presumably without the price tag too.
Yeah. It's actually much cheaper than Mosaic by a few dollars a pound. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
really worked
thirty
out.
thirty percent cheaper.
Yeah. Um, Paul, can you, for those unfamiliar, can you describe these products? I've heard Salvo, Lupulin. What are the differences of these three things?
Yeah, so Salvo is going to be our variety specific CO2 extract where we remove the alpha acids. And then what this does is it acts as a hop oil delivery device to your whirlpool. So you can deliver all the flavor and aroma without delivering the vegetal matter or the alpha acid, which will convert with heat to isoalpha acid, creating IBUs and bitterness. So
And this is a pourable or is a powder or what is it?
so I describe it, it's hot peanut butter.
Okay.
But what you do is, once you've laudered your mash over to your boil kettle and you start your boil, all you have to do is drop that can. It looks like a Campbell soup can, but a really, really big one. And you drop it in a bucket of hot water and it will liquefy so you can easily add it to your whirlpool.
Okay.
Yeah. And when it's pouring out after it's warmed up, it kind of pours like maple syrup. Like it's not as thick as peanut butter. It's more like a syrup, I guess.
Okay. Okay. And then
Uh,
lupulin?
Yeah, lupulin pellets are concentrated pellets. So what we do is once they go, the bales become powder. We take that and we sieve out the vegetal matter, concentrating the lupulin glands. So it increases alpha acids, beta acids, and hop oils. So our standard pellets, what we call a T90 or a Type 90, generally have about 10% of the vegetative material removed. And our lupulin pellets, they're a little bit stronger than what we would call a P45, which is a standardization pellet.
Hmm.
So we're in these lupulin pellets, they're roughly like a T35, let's say. And so
Okay.
about 65% of the vegetative material is removed, concentrating everything else.
Okay. And so, I heard, nugget salvo, that makes sense. It's a salvo made out of nugget, but I heard Salvo Plus. What is Salvo Plus?
Salvo Plus is one of our newer Salvo products. It is non-variety specific. What we do is we take an oil profile, we reduce the myrcene down to it between 10 and 15%. Myrcene is one of those flavors you don't necessarily want in your beer. It does volatilize off hot side. It'll scrub out a little bit with CO2 during fermentation. For this product, we decided to just remove it, and by that, it then concentrates some of the other oils that are left in there, like linalool and geraniol. And so this is a flowable, water-soluble product that is pourable, that you add at late whirlpool or knockout, or you pitch it directly with your yeast. And then what it does is it'll undergo a fermentation, throughout that fermentation, you'll biotransform some of those components, one of them being the geraniol into beta citronellol, which produce these big fruity flavors. So essentially what you can do is by putting it in on your cold side, you can reduce your dry hop down. And for every, pound of pellets you take out of your dry hop, you can pick up about a gallon to a gallon and a half of finished beer. So the more you remove, the more finished beer you're going to have at the end of the day. Now, the job, Chris's job is finding that balance between optimizing flavor and optimizing yield. And so SalvoPlus acts as a great medium for doing both of those.
Cool. Chris, are there any kind of we talked about some numbers here, but are there any non-financial benefits? We talked about how before you were using partial bags and having to measure out and weigh out these different. I think there was like 10 different hops in the
Yeah.
one beer, but now is it shelf stability of these products? Is it better, or less inventory costs? Are they you know is it easier to work with? And I'm even wondering if you have less wastewater treatment because you have less vegetative material, things like this. Yeast cropping?
Yeah, all those things are definitely true and pluses. Not only does it improve the yield, greatly increases the shelf stability. The previous beers or previous recipes oxidized really fast, I think because of how many hops are in it, how much exposure. We have a little dry hop doser where we add the hops to and then it recirculates the tank. But just the amount of time it takes with the lid open to pour in those extra hops, I think was contributing to its staleness or its rate of staleness. And so now that it's got less stuff going into it each time, it's open a little bit less. It's a lot faster of a load. On brew day, it's faster. The brewers are on the brew deck more. They're not in the cooler weighing out all these 13 different varieties of hops to the exact pound. So it's improved efficiency in a lot of different ways. It's easier to clean the lauter tun or not the lauter tun, but the kettle and the whirlpool because there's just not as much debris in it anymore.
Hmm.
So it's improving the time of, our IPA used to take or a two-turn day would take about 10 or 11 hours, and now we can get it done in about 9 hours because it's a little bit less work on the CIP as well. So it's
I
really
see.
a multifaceted positive that we're working with these products.
Maybe you're even using a little less water in terms of cleaning
Probably,
and stuff.
probably we're definitely using a little less water on rinsing stuff out because the whirlpool is just not as loaded.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Um, and then Chris, consumer feedback.
Consumer feedback has been overwhelmingly good. Very few people know that we've changed the recipes. We didn't really advertise it,
Yep.
but we have a core group of people. We call them the orbiters. They're like our inner orbit crew, where they're kind of like our mug club. They're just people that are in the tap room every week, and we sign them up for memberships where they get, more benefits than an average customer would. But they've paid into this group, but they get opportunities to learn more about the process. So we've shared with them on multiple occasions the differences that we've done. Why did we improve this beer and why did we work on changing the recipe? And everybody who's tried it has just blown it out of the water with how their feedback. They're amazed at how good it tastes. And we did this pretty simultaneously. So the regular IPA went first, and Hazy Trail Magic went a couple weeks after that. But essentially, to the grand market scheme, they were changed at the same time for the most part. And so when you tell people that you change something right away, a lot of people kind of clinch up, like, "Oh my gosh, what did you do?"
Yeah.
But these people were all really receptive of it and just improvements overall, and it gave them both their own identity. So they kind of taste less the same. I mean, hazies and American IPAs are obviously different, right? They look different, they taste different, but some of the same hop flavors are in both. And they kind of, if you closed your eyes initially, they kind of smelled the same or too similar for me.
Hmm.
And if we're going to go to distribution with these both on the shelf, for me, I need them to taste and smell radically different from each other. And so, choosing what hops went where really helped us pinpoint the American IPA and that citrus forward profile. And then the hazy went more tropical, kind of coconut, pineapple, that tropical dankness that people really like. But one thing that really bugs me about hazies is a lot of them all taste the same.
Hmm.
And they got that Citrus Simcoe mosaic profile, and that works well for most people. But here in Tennessee, we've got Yeehaws Hazy is really popular. Bearded Iris's Hazy is really popular. We've got a lot of competition. There's 18 other breweries in the Knoxville area, and we got Zool in town, and they're all making great beers. But after one or two, all their hazies taste the same to me. And I kind of really wanted to make ours just stand out. And so it definitely helped give it its own identity, not only improve the process, improve the cost, it really has its own face now, and it tastes radically different than everyone else's in a good, very good way.
Can you like have sales increased? Say that?
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah,
cool. Awesome.
very much. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a
And
great news story. Good
it,
job, Paul.
yeah, Paul did a great job. I could not have done it without him. Absolutely not. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
kudos
waiting
to
for
great.
my
him.
10% check still.
You'll get that in the form of free food and free beer.
I
Come on
know.
by.
Before I let you go, Chris, can you sh share your social media handle so everybody can learn about all the cool things you're doing at Peaceful Side?
Sure, you can check us out at peacefulsidebrewery.com where there's a section about the beer. So it details a lot of this information we're sharing here. On social media, we're the same, Peaceful Side Brewery. And then my personal Instagram is just another craft brewer. So both of those you can get in touch with me either way.
Cool. And Paul, same question for you.
Yeah, I can be reached at my Hopsteiner email address, which is pschroeder@hopsteiner.com. That's Schroeder. And on Instagram, you can find me at Tennessee TN backyard_farmer.
Okay. Great. I've never been to Knoxville, so Chris, next time I'm there, I'm gonna look you up.
Yeah, please do. We're happy to host you.
Awesome. Cheers, everybody.
Thank you.
If you enjoy the All About Beer podcast, please thank our sponsors. And please visit allaboutbeer.com and follow us on social media at All About Beer. And please visit allaboutbeer.com/support to support this show and others. If you have questions for the experts, please email podcast@allaboutbeer.com. That's also the email for feedback, suggestions, or to inquire about supporting this show through advertising. And before we end this episode, just a friendly reminder that I am at the Dawn of Beer on X, Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram. On Facebook, I'm at the Beer Dawn, and you can email me at dawn@thedawnofbeer.com. Here's a final word from our sponsors.
What can I say? Once you go Salvo, you don't go back. Better yields, repeatable performance, and fewer hop solids to drag you down. No more heavy hop loads, no bitterness spikes, just variety-specific hop flavor. It's the easiest way to sharpen your aroma profile while improving your yields batch after batch. Find out more at shop.hopsteiner.com or ask a sales rep how Salvo can help you.
This show is produced by All About Beer. Visit allaboutbeer.com for articles, notes on this show and others, and to connect via the newsletter and social media. Cheers!